Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Election Detection. Now, overall, this time with Election Detection Online, which has probably been some number of days and/or hours at this point since we announced our format shift, you have heard us cover a number of stories. I won't tell you what they are because honestly, I don't know what order I'm going to post them on our Twitter, and so you may have heard any combination of them. You may have heard one of them. You may have heard two of them. You may have heard six of them. But whatever. Here we are. We're not doing a main story today. We are bringing back our favorite little segment that we would definitely not let go the way of the dodo. We are heading to elsewhere, where we talk about the little snippets of information from random topics and random places that we don't really have enough information on to throw into a full several-minute long story, but we wanted to talk about all the same. So up there, or over there, or somewhere, however
I mean,
Zooms
you're
rendering it
above me in
today
this setup, but I don't know.
is my co-host. What's his name up there or down
Hi.
here?
What?
Yeah, that's Johnny Robertson. My
Space is
name's Taylor
meaningless.
Cottrell. So, Johnny, why don't you take it away and tell us what the first topic of our elsewhere is?
So, on our first topic of elsewhere is actually a bit of good news, which is nice for those of you who've been listening for the last few weeks. A lot of our elsewheres generally are not great news. So, good news is uh, the Earth doesn't have any current active Ebola epidemics. If you want to call that a positive, hey, at least you don't have Ebola right now. This is the first time reported since January of this year, and only the second time since April 2018 that the planet has not had any active Ebola epidemics.
It is nice to see that we're getting through at least some kind of highly transmittable deadly disease.
We're trying.
Yeah, it's it's
Hey,
it's it's nice to see some of them finally winding down. I'm going to add on to that it's something I probably should have typed in here, but actually, COVID precautions over the last year and a half have led to two human strains of flu going extinct. There are less flus in the world than there were a year and a half ago.
yeah,
So you probably like at this point hearing good news with elsewhere. Too bad,
yes.
because the Taliban is advancing quickly across Afghanistan as the NATO withdrawal begins. Taliban forces have captured 50 districts in Afghanistan since May 1st, and they've positioned themselves to launch assaults on major cities, including Kandahar. Now, most recently, they've captured a major border crossing with Tajikistan or outside, I should say, the city of Kunduz. So that's a little troubling.
Yeah, Taliban too.
Definitely not Electric
Taliban.
Boogaloo. But
Elsewhere, elsewhere, more bad news. You're welcome. Tropical depression Claudette, or in my case, just depression. Uh, the tropical depression Claudette has claimed 14 lives as it's ripped through some of the southern states, specifically Alabama. Unfortunately, 10 of them being just children due to a multi-car pileup caused by the tropical depression.
that's just really unlucky
Andy,
when you manage to get 10 people in one pile up and 10 of them are children.
yeah, it's like some minnows in a barrel kind of thing.
So, in this very bipolar section of elsewhere, we're heading back to good news, which is that Canada currently leads the world in first dose COVID shots. We recently overtook Israel and the Seychelles, with over 75% of our population having received their first dose of either Pfizer, Moderna, or AstraZeneca. And to that, we say to our southern neighbors, we watch you, you're coming along. It's definitely good. But in Canada, we have always been better than Americans at taking shots, slap or otherwise.
Slap, snap, or shot.
Yep.
Elsewhere, elsewhere is a quick touch upon a particular tense border right now, the border of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, in which a group of protesters have, at least up until yesterday morning, created a blockade of New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, protesting the constant changing border policies put in by the Nova Scotia government, which were put in place, particularly targeting New Brunswickers crossing into Nova Scotia after the New Brunswick government, particularly its premier Blaine Higgs, changed the Border Act. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Basically,
Okay.
let's boil down
Yes.
here. The Atlantic bubble was due to start. Higgs announced that he was going to let people into New Brunswick from the rest of Canada, which would give them access to Nova Scotia, which Ian Rankin, the Premier of Nova Scotia, looked at and went, "Oh hell no!" and then proceeded to close off the Nova Scotia border a little bit. To which one Conservative MP in Nova Scotia said, "Hey everybody, go block the Trans Canada Highway because we want the right to get COVID." And so then they went down and blocked the Trans Canada Highway. And then the particular MP realized that she had no control over the situation, denied ever having said anything, even though she posted videos of herself on Twitter at the border crossing, promoting it. Then tried to blame anybody else, and then was eventually booted from the Conservative caucus for basically inciting a riot. The border protesters effectively just kind of stayed in place for a while, and no one did much about it until they tried to stop a truck carrying blood for the hospitals in Nova Scotia from crossing the border, which basically ran the blockade, effectively playing chicken with them. At which point the RCMP went in to break up the whole thing, and it's been fairly calm since then. How's that?
Yeah, pretty well. It got to the point basically where reportedly emergency rooms in certain hospitals close to the border actually had to shut down. I'd seen reports of particularly there was one in Amherst that had to partially close their emergency room because they weren't getting access to particular things on those trucks that were trying to cross the border.
Yep. Yeah, there were people.
Other reports include other hospital supplies were vaccines.
Yeah, there were people stuck
gives
waiting
you
out
further
there
insight
for
as to who was at the border.
over 24 hours in some cases.
Yep.
So shall we move on to our last elsewhere, which is neither really good news or bad news.
Just trippy.
Now, you may remember back in, I believe, November of last year, a certain three-sided steel monolith found in the Utah desert became an internet celebrity overnight for just popping up and really doing nothing other than just kind of being there, and then just vanishing. After which a monolith appeared in Romania, and then a monolith appeared in the UK, and then monoliths of a similar design began appearing either mysteriously or not mysteriously all over the planet. They were reported on basically every continent, dozens of countries. Well, here's the thing. The fad for putting them up and reporting them may have cooled off a bit from the time when there were 8 or 9 popping up a day, but there's new ones still appearing every month. 3 showed up in May, 1 in Minnesota, 1 in Romania, and 1 in Spain. And most recently, 1 actually showed up in Dryden, New York State on June 11th. So monoliths are still out there. Apparently someone is still trying to contact the Intergalactic Federation. If you remember that particular bit from 2020, it's apparently still going on. We just thought you should know.
It is a living dead meme.
And
keep going, guys. You might contact the aliens someday. If they do, tell them we said hi.
I think the monoliths are my favorite plot arc of 2020. It's the only one that's not horrifying to think back on. It's just a global scavenger hunt.
Yeah, it's such like a background meme. I love it.
I know, me too. Now, speaking of background memes, that's us, and we should probably wrap this up for the day, as that's just about all the time we have. So thank you for tuning in to Elsewhere, and we will see you probably tomorrow.